We're going to talk about coyote in this segment. First of all, probably the biggest thing that I deal with the coyotes is overpopulation. That's a big problem. There's not much that is preys on coyotes anymore, as we've encroached more and more into their territory, and they seem to do so well in ours. I have nothing but respect for the coyote. I've learned a lot about them, and I continue to learn every day. I'll give you an example of some of the problems of overpopulation. Is they seem to get in and start causing trouble in ranches and farms, and even in some of the towns. They come right into town and get into people's garbage, and have taken cats and dogs and such like. So what ends up happening is sometimes they're hit by cars. Several different things happen, and one of them is of course disease that comes in. And mange is probably the biggest disease that I see in the coyote family in this part of the country, or Sarcoptic Mange is the scientific word for it, I guess. Mange is a mite that lives on blood vessels under the skin, causing great irritation to the animal. They rub and rub because of the itching and the irritation. They bite themselves until eventually they lose all their fur. The problem when they lose their fur, obviously, is that they're not going to survive the winter. When it gets so bad, and I've taken coyotes that have had fur, the only part of the fur is from their top shoulders to the tip of their nose. From the shoulders down to the tip of their tail is completely bald. Their skin turns blue, they have big open sores. It's not a very pretty sight, and I certainly don't enjoy having to go in and control diseased animals. It's my wish that we could go in there and harvest the surplus of the population of those animals while they're healthy and the fur is useful and can be used for something, keeping a healthy population. Once the mange has gone into the pack, it's very difficult till it's run its course to deal with. So I'd just like to mention, along with the respect to these animals, I've had a lot of people say, why can't you live trap the animals and transport them to another area that might seem to be more suitable, maybe perhaps closer to the mountains. Well, the coyote, the way he lives is he lives where the food supply is the best. He's primarily a small, like mice and rabbits and things like that. If he doesn't have that available, they will pack up and take big animals, but they still are considered a pack animal. They get their identity, their self-worth from their pack. So if I live trap the coyote and I take him to another area, it's very difficult to find an area where there isn't already plenty of coyotes. And each area will only sustain a certain amount of available feed. So what ends up happening is that the coyotes that are in that area that we've picked out that we think would be very nice are not going to welcome a new coyote into the group. He's going to have to fight to survive, if he survives at all. So those are some of the considerations that we have to deal with when we're thinking about coyotes. Now we're in an area here where the coyotes are coming through. This morning it was minus 30 degrees below zero, so I've got 3 different traps or devices that I would use to trap coyotes in this area, or fox. Much the same applies to the fox family. This is a foot-holding trap. This would not be my first choice here because of the snow and the extreme winter conditions. This trap is susceptible to freezing up. It's a restraining device, quite a bit different than the old traps that we're used to of long ago. Now this trap, to show you some of the different characteristics about it, I'll just see if I can get it loaded in the cold here. I'm going to set this trap so that you can see the characteristics of the trap. This is called a number 1.5 soft catch. So this is a little bit light perhaps for a coyote. Probably I would use this more for a fox, but the trap is the same. For a coyote, it's a little bit larger. It's called a number 3 soft catch, which I would personally use. This trap, the first thing that you would notice is where I'm pointing here is called the trap jaws, and they're rubber lined. There's a rubber insert in here, okay, so that it's a cushion so that the metal is not making contact with the animal's foot. This is a foot holding trap to restrain the animal. I would use this in an area like this if I was concerned about catching a dog that might happen into my traps. This will not hurt the animal. If I did catch somebody's dog, I could release the dog and let him go on his way, and the trap will not hurt him. This trap I can snap on my hand just to show you that it doesn't break any bones. It's intended just to grip and hold the animal. So this is not my first choice of trap, but it is a tool that can be used in an area, as I said, where we have to worry about picking up another kind of an animal. On the bottom of the trap you can see that there's a swivel so that the animal can't turn its foot inside the trap turns with it. This trap would be staked down into the ground by the cable. It would be staked. There's a spring here to help take some of the shock as it tries to pull, and so that's the idea of it. It's a restraining device, a foot holding trap. They've come a long way from the old traps. Let me show you another option. We could use an ordinary neck snare. Okay, the properties of this are that on a neck snare we've got basically three parts. This part is the 3/32 aircraft cable. This part here is an aluminum ferrule that's crimped in order to make our loop and attach the parts of the snare. And here we have the aluminum ferrule. In this case it's a locking device, or this is the aluminum ferrule. In this case this is a cam lock, which is a one-way lock. When we set the loop out for the animal, we make the size of the loop. When the animal gets caught in the trap around its neck, this lock will not open. And the more that the animal pulls, the tighter it gets, and it will not release. Now this is not intended to do anything except kill the animal. The idea is that it constricts the blood flow to the brain, and so that the animal will succumb to it. They're not always as effective as we'd like them to be, but to this point it's the best that we have as a common neck snare. Now I'd like to show you the ram power snare system. We'll just put this board down so it's easier to see. This is the working component of the ram, and this is the snare that attaches onto it. And I'll show you how that part works in a minute. But this is the main part that differs this trap. It's one long piece of spring steel curled around to the other end. This little hook here is to help me so that when I load the trap it'll hold it in position. And I'm going to show you how that works now. The safest way to work with a trap like this is I like to put my left foot here on top of the ram so that when I load the trap, if the trap slips and gets out of my hand before I get the hook on, my knee in this position is going to be my safety system. The ram, if it slipped out of my hand, would automatically shoot up my leg and it would throw it away from me, protecting me from getting hit by this. This is a lethal weapon, or I guess I should say a lethal piece of equipment. So we need to be careful when dealing with something like this. It's meant to kill very, very quickly. So here's our ram in the closed position, and as I said, this is a safety to hold it in position until I'm ready. The two eyes that you see on the end, this is called a lap link, and that's what we're going to attach the snare onto. And on this side we've got a little notch in here, and that's part of our trigger system. So now when I attach the snare, you'll be able to see a little bit of how it's supposed to work. On the snare here we've got a little ferrule that's clamped right on the cable, and that's what's going to hold into our little slot, and on this end is our eye to hook to the lap link. So we pass it through this end of the snare, or the ram, and we hook it on here to our lap link, give it a half a turn, and now it's attached. And this little piece here now becomes our trigger. This piece that you can see right here. Okay, so that's what's doing all the work. So when I remove this hook and get this ready on the trail, and we're going to show you that, this, the only thing that'll be holding this whole system is this little ferrule right here. And so when the coyote comes along and he gets caught in the snare, now this part of it is the same as our neck snare. It's intended to set out on the trail so that the coyote will catch this through his head and catch him by the neck. But the difference with this system is instead of the animal pulling and providing the closing clamping force himself, when he pulls on this and this flies up, you can imagine now there's nothing holding this, and it's going to fling itself wide open very, very quickly, shutting off the blood supply to the brain, and he is going to succumb to that very, very quickly. This is an excellent tool, very humane, although sometimes not too practical to carry around the bush and in some uses. But as a humane killing device, these are an excellent tool. Okay, we've picked out a trail here that we're going to try to pick up a coyote as he travels through here. We like this setting here because it's a natural kind of a crotch of the trees that comes through here, and the coyotes are traveling through here really well. Couple of things that we need to think about when we're dealing with coyotes is that all of the dog family has an amazing sense of smell. So when we work with snares or foot-holding devices or anything that we're using on the dog family, we've got to treat those traps so that we deodorize them, get rid of any smell of oil or our hands or anything like that. So we've set up a snare here. And this snare we've treated boiled it in some baking soda to deodorize it and get rid of the natural oils and stuff from the cable. Okay, so we've got a nice little spot coming through here. I'm going to use this stick as my poker. Over here, we've got a nice sized tree, just right in the right spot. So we've anchored our snare to it. We've wrapped our snare cable around this tree, and that's what's going to hold. And as he comes through here, the cable's coming down here, and here we have the loop of the cable. There's the loop there. The loop size for a coyote should be 10 to 12 inches, and then we've got it about 10 to 12 inches off the ground. And so we've got it sitting right in the middle of the trail where we've seen the coyotes been traveling through here. This is our locking system right here that we've showed you. There's our lock, and our snare is just sitting here, and we've got a tree or a small limb that we've put across here just to give us something to hang the snare on, and also to discourage any deer or other animal that comes through here of a bigger size will either go around or step over this, whereas a coyote will naturally duck his head underneath of this, and he probably won't see this snare, and we'll catch him with the snare. That's the idea of the snaring system. This set is with our ram, the ram Power Snare. We're utilizing this trail. We've got our tree here. We're anchoring to this tree. From the bottom of our ram, we've wrapped around this tree so that it can't be pulled away. And we've got our ram sitting right here, and our loop is right here in this spot. This little bit of wire that we have on this part of the cable is only just there just to set that so that we can balance and hold the snare out where we want it to sit. So now as we go to leave from this set, we'll just release this bar, and that trap is ready to go. We're going to pick him up as he's coming through here, and as he pulls on this, he's going to trip the edge of the ram, and that ram is going to spring open, and he won't even mess this area up. This ram will kill him very quickly. The ram was invented by a fellow by the name of Bruce Bertram in Manitoba, Canada, and I've had very good luck with these as a very humane killing tool.